Hey guys, it's December 3rd, 2020. As of today, Disney's remake of Mulan is officially available for general access on Disney+. That means you no longer have to pay an extra $30 or $35 if you're Canadian, or £20 if you're overseas, just to watch this film. But is it a movie you really want to watch? I'm here today to give you my spoiler-filled review. But just so you know, this movie claims it's a remake of Disney's classic Mulan, but first of all, there's no Mushu, there's no music, it's not animated. The original had a runtime of 88 minutes, this one's runtime is over 100 minutes. Honestly, no live-action remake has infuriated me more than Beauty and the Beast when they cast Josh Gad and he wasn't even a snowman. This movie is offensive to me, this movie is offensive to my childhood, this movie is offensive to Mushu, and this movie is offensive to Krampus. Welcome to Teacup For One. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and welcome to part 2 of my review of Disney's live-action Mulan. And if you are in fact watching this on December 3rd, 2020, hello future people! You might have already seen my spoiler-free review of the film, where I kind of painted in broad strokes and gave a general overview of what I thought about the film, but today, this is the spoiler-filled review. That's right, no holds barred. I am going to get down to the nitty-gritty and let you know what I actually thought of Disney's most polarizing live-action remake. Seriously, some people love this movie, some people hate this movie, and honestly, who better to give you a comprehensive review of a film all about feminism as seen through the lens of Chinese culture than an ethnically ambiguous Canadian male? Just kidding. Well, actually not just kidding, because in a lot of ways, I know that I'm not this movie's target audience. It's not a film I would really have any interest in seeing aside from it being a Disney movie, and I think that's the reason that it's become such a polarizing film for a lot of Disney fans, like I said. Because, like I touched on in my spoiler-free review, this live-action remake's strength is the fact that it is nothing like the animated film whatsoever, and they're very unapologetic about that. The first moment of the movie is literally Mulan's dad telling you, as the narrator, there have been many tales of the great warrior Mulan. This is mine. Right off the bat, within like the first 10 seconds of the movie, we are told to leave our expectations at the door and just be open-minded for this new telling of the legend of Mulan that is about to be presented to us. And I thought that was such a brilliant move on the part of the filmmakers, just to tell the audience to go in with a clean slate. But you know how people are. They don't like change. And there have been so many different opinions about this movie so far, and I mean, a lot of them are valid criticisms about the film, but I've seen a lot of people complaining about the fact that the movie was, air quotes, ruined because there was no Mushu and because there were no songs. And I'm just going to address that right now, just to get it out of the way. If your movie cannot survive without the aid of comedic sidekicks or musical numbers, then the story is not worth telling in the first place. Yep, I said it. And that's the Teacup For One. First of all, Hollywood really doesn't know how to make a good movie musical anymore, especially in the case of the Disney live-action remakes. Of all the Disney live-action remakes, the songs are only there as pandering fan service, and they always inhibit the success of the movie overall. And beyond that, Mulan would not have worked as a musical because the live-action remake of Mulan is a martial arts film. Now, this is one of the cases where I fully admit I'm not the movie's target audience, because honestly, before this, I don't think I've ever actually sat through a martial arts film from start to finish. So I really didn't have anything to compare it to, but as a casual viewer, I loved it. I thought the battle scenes were so well done, and it was just an awesome mix of like armed and unarmed combat, and I loved the final battle between Mulan and Bori Khan. It just had everything. There was a mix of swordplay, hand-to-hand combat. They utilized quarterstaffs, which you don't see very often in movies, I don't think, but I love quarterstaff. And the fight itself, it was character-driven. There was this beautiful element of like quick thinking and spontaneity to it, and it was on scaffolding above liquid fire. I mean, what more could you want? But it's not just that the fight scenes looked cool. They did such an incredible job of instilling in the audience's head that all the fighting and training they were doing were grounded by those values of bravery, truth, and loyalty. And those were direct reflections of Mulan's journey as a character. And that is why this movie would not have worked as a musical. Because when you're doing a musical, you're expressing characters' emotions when they get to a certain height through song and dance, and then using those emotions and those musical numbers to tell the story. But in this film, they did that with the martial arts training and with the fight sequences. And honestly, I just think that's brilliant filmmaking. Okay, next, let's talk about my little buddy Mushu. In my spoiler-free review, I talked about why I thought it was a strong move to not have Mushu at all, because the live-action remakes tend to fall into this trap of trying to force one actor to recreate another actor's performance, and yes, I stand by that. But let's address the other dragon in the room. Mushu was not in this movie out of respect for Chinese culture. And of course, I'm obviously not the right person to mansplain to you what is or is not an offensive representation of Chinese culture. But plain and simply, from what I understand, the dragon is a sacred creature in Chinese folklore, and Mushu simply wasn't a great representation of that. Now, the go-to comment that I have seen circulating on Facebook a lot especially is, oh, of course, it makes sense. Disney wanted to be more realistic, so they got rid of Mushu, but instead they have a woman that could turn into a bird. This is my response to that. Personally, I believe it is 100% possible to create your own mythology for the purposes of telling a story while still respecting a culture. I think another great example of that is Pixar's Coco. So, even though Gong Li's character doesn't exist in the original Ballad of Mulan, there are still witches and sorcerers and shapeshifters embedded into Chinese heritage. And her character is a great representation of all the feminist themes that this movie is tackling. Whereas Mushu was literally just taking a figure from China's heritage and using it for comedic relief. Now, nobody is calling for a ban on Mushu because he's offensive, but Disney is telling the story again. They saw an opportunity for a do-over, and they took it. I don't see anything wrong with that, and we still have the original Mushu in the animated film in a setting where that character and that style of humor actually fits. It just means that we don't have Mushu in this film, and I think that's fine. Do you know what we do have, though? A phoenix. So, let's start with the good things about the phoenix. First off, the movie did a great job of explaining the relevance and the importance of the phoenix, and aesthetically, I thought the phoenix was absolutely gorgeous. In a movie where everything looked really naturalistic, there was this beautiful stylization to the phoenix that just looked like an illustration brought to life, and I loved it. It's also kind of cool because the phoenix serves as the figure that Mulan's family wanted to send to look after Mulan in the animated film, but instead they got Mushu. But in this movie, it's just this like beautiful symbolic protector. And it kind of just keeps showing up. And it doesn't really have any personality. And after a couple of appearances, I was just like, oh look, a phoenix. Speaking of no personality, let's talk about Ife Lu. One of the big criticisms I've seen of the film is that it's boring. And I honestly think a lot of that comes down to the fact that we don't have a very engaging actor leading the movie. As I said in my last review, I think she does suit the character in certain parts of the movie. Her fight work is absolutely impeccable, and her quiet, stone-faced stoicism works perfectly during all the sequences when she's at war and when she comes into her own as like this strong, fierce, chi-wielding warrior woman. But none of that has any emotional resonance because of her performance in the movie's first act. When we first meet Mulan as like a little kid, that character has such a like vibrant energy and spark and love of life, and like the kid actor is incredible. Like even that one scene when she's doing her sister's hair and she says, "There's a spider and I'm going to squash it," like that was incredible. That is the heart and the spark that I wanted from that character. But as soon as we transition to grown-up Mulan, it's gone. And I really do believe that it has a lot to do with the performer over directorial choices, because you can tell that the movie is trying to make her a funny fish out of water character, especially in the matchmaker scene. Like, just there's that one part when she's walking to the matchmaker with her mom and her sister, and then she's commenting about how thick the makeup is on her face, that I think she says the strongest wind wouldn't be able to break this makeup. Then she says to her sister, "Look at my face. What am I feeling? This is my happy face. This is my sad face. Now I'm confused." And the joke is supposed to be that the makeup is just painted on so thick that she can't move her face and make any expressions. But then the sad real-life irony is that that's just how she is as an actor. And once she gets to the matchmaker, everything almost goes perfectly. She is exactly what I would think the matchmaker is looking for. She's pouring the tea ever so calmly, and the only reason things go haywire is because there's a spider and it freaks out the sister. Honestly, I really loved the sister. The sister was so funny. The sister was so endearing, and she hardly had any screen time, but she was just such a joy to watch. And I think there was a massive missed opportunity with the character of the sister, because they consciously added the sister character for some reason as a contrast to Mulan, and it would be a perfect opportunity to just have these two side by side with like the sister as the stone-faced stoic one, who right from the beginning is like the perfect bride, everything the matchmaker is looking for, and then the kind of adorable, clumsy fish out of water qualities could be attributed to Mulan, so that she would have something to rise above when she joins the war and joins the army, and then finally realizes where she belongs and where her strengths are best utilized. But instead, we have this kind of mismatched thing where Mulan is the calm, stoic one, and the sister is like the adorable, funny one. And I don't know. Anyway, like I've said, I think she gives a great performance for 3/4 of the movie, and I think this exact same film would have been so much more effective if we just had a more energized performance from Mulan right off the top. The whole point of the story is that she has to learn how to channel her energy in order to be a great warrior and save China, but it's not that effective if she doesn't start the story by showing us what this amazing energy is. She just needs more energy. Get the girl a Red Bull. Okay, so that was my main point of criticism for this film. For the last chunk of the review, I am just going to rapid fire through some positive and some constructive points about this movie. Ready? Here we go. Positive point. Gong Li's character, Xian Lang, is a perfect antagonist for this film. She follows the same formula as Jafar in the live-action Aladdin, where we're having a villain who is almost like a mirror of our main character, showing us the path that our main character could go down if they make different choices, and dramatically, that is so effective. Constructive, I wasn't completely clear on why Xian Lang couldn't just use her magical powers and abilities to take over and rule China by herself. I understand that the movie was working with the whole theme of silencing powerful women, but I mean, come on, she could turn into a bird and she could possess literally anyone she wanted. What's stopping her from just possessing the emperor? Positive. All the actors cast for Mulan's war buddies were perfect. They were endearing, and they were just such great tributes to the animated counterparts without being too cartoony. And I personally really loved the approach that they took with the love story. So it was more like that relationship was earned and built upon them having this mutual experience of going through war together, having mutual respect, and then at the very end it's left just ambiguous enough. It's not a cut and dry case of, oh, you're a woman? Well, I guess it's a match. Constructive, I thought the actor playing the love interest was a little bit bland and lacking personality, at least compared to the others in the army, but who knows? Maybe that's why his character fell in love with Liu Yifei's Mulan. Positive, I thought the cinematography and especially the special effects in this film were incredible. I think there was so much more power to having all of the magical happenings implied instead of just outright shown on screen. For example, when we learn that Gong Li's character is able to possess other humans, the fact that we just saw it from two shadows merging together as one was so powerful. Another great moment was the part when Gong Li's character turned into the bird to sacrifice herself for Mulan, and then the bird is shot with the arrow, and then it falls into frame, and then Mulan catches her, and then as the camera kind of tilts down to follow, that one split second when the bird is off screen is when it turns back into human Xian Lang, and I thought that whole sequence was just so brilliantly directed. Constructive. I thought directorially some of the sequences moved a little too fast. This has a little bit to do with my nostalgia for the animated film, but I did miss the montage when she makes the decision to go to war for her father. In this, it literally just cuts to her in full armor. Positive. There's that sequence with the running bunnies at the beginning, which is lifted directly from the final lines of the Ballad of Mulan. The Ballad of Mulan ends with this beautiful metaphor about how you can tell which rabbit is male and which is female when they're held up side by side, but when they're running and in motion, the differences are indecipherable, which is, I mean, a pretty on-the-nose metaphor for the entire story of Mulan, but just visualizing that right at the beginning of the movie is like one of those things that just makes the film nerd in me really happy. Positive, The movie did something unique and different and told a familiar story in a brand new way. And if that is the direction that Disney is going to be going with all their future live action remakes, I might not be as cynical about them, and maybe eventually we'll get a really good film out of it. But for now, friends, that concludes yet another episode of Teacup For One. Let me know in the comment section down below, have you seen Mulan yet? And what did you think? And if you want to hear me talk even more about Disney, or do film reviews, talk about Shakespeare, or occasionally cats, please consider subscribing to the channel if you have not done so already. It's super easy. All you need to do is click on my face. Thanks for joining me again today, everyone. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and that's the Teacup For One. Okay, go away.